Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. Hometown Ticketing is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection podcast and to provide schools nationwide with the best options for digital ticketing for their events. Visit their website at hometownticketing.com to learn how they can make digital ticketing possible and simple at your school. Thank you to Hometown Ticketing for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I am Mark Hutch-Hunter, your host, and today we are more than pleased to have Kandice Mitchell from CMAA, Assistant Director of Athletics for the for Atlanta Public Schools. Welcome, Kandice, to the podcast. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to join you guys.
Well, Rich Barton, obviously.
Absolutely.
And his comment to me was, you could tell Kandice, she's one of the most talented up-and-comer athletic directors in the nation, was his comment to me.
That's pretty cool coming from Rich.
Well,
he has been a blessing in my life, a mentor to me and a friend.
That's excellent. Kandice, why don't we begin by sharing with our listeners in Utah, hopefully in Georgia and across the United States. Give us a little bit of your background, where you grew up, where you went to college, sports background, that type of thing.
Okay, well, I'm born and raised in Atlanta in a family full of educators and coaches and athletic administrators. And so this has just been a natural progression for me, growing up around sports. When I grew up, I participated in track and basketball, and I always wanted to play football, but that wasn't too much of an option for me where I grew up for girls to play football. So I was a cheerleader, but it was always around the game of football. And as you know, to this day, it's still a special part of my life. I was married to a football player in the NFL. So I was an NFL wife for a while. But prior to that, I matriculated through elementary, middle, and high school with Atlanta Public Schools, went on to the University of Texas, where I was a national champion in track and field. I also ran with USA in track and field. And I got my master's at Georgia State, and I started teaching in Griffin and Spalding. I taught special education and math. I've taught elementary, middle, and high school. And I left Henry County High Schools. I was a PE teacher and a health teacher. And I took this position as Assistant Director of Athletics in Atlanta Public Schools. And it's been a dream come true.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm assuming that you ran the 100 and the 200 in track?
No, I actually I grew up as a distance runner.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I ran the mile. That was like my event. And I did the mile all the way up until now mind you, I started when I was 5 years old. And so I used to get last place for about 5 years. I think when I was around 10, 11 or 12 or something like that, I was still competing in a mile. And one of my teammates was not able to come to a state event. We were running AAU or USA track and field, and she wasn't able to come. And so my dad said, do you want to take her place in the 400 meters? And so I said, the 400 meters, like one time around the track? And he said, yes, one time. So I was thinking, I hate doing 4 laps. Of course I want to do 1 lap. And so that was my first time running the 400 meters, and I set a state record. And from that point on, I never looked back. I was able to drop down to the 400 and the 800, but my dad would stick me in the mile every now and then just to keep me honest.
Oh, that's impressive. So you went to University of Texas. You're a Longhorn then?
Absolutely. Hook 'em horns.
Okay, there you go. And so tell me this, you mentioned earlier when we were off camera, maybe one of your mentors is Big Rich Barton from Utah, yes. But mention Rich, maybe some of the other people that have had an influence in your life that have been mentors to you.
Absolutely. Rich, I met Rich at a national conference. Well, actually, it was at a state coordinators conference where we met, but I had
In
seen him
September.
before. And but if it was not for my immediate supervisor, my boss, Jasper Jewell, he is the gentleman that hired me for the position that I'm in now, I probably wouldn't be where I am. But Jasper took me under his wing and just got me going. He knew that I was hungry to learn, and he knew that I loved the field of athletic administration. I was like a sponge, just soaking it in. And he ate that up, just giving me opportunities to meet people, to be involved. He was giving me a lot more responsibility, and I loved it. So, just participating at state conferences, whether it was just through registration, just getting me involved in getting certified and meeting people, going to all the different conferences and workshops, just getting involved. Jasper Jewell is the one that really just got me going. And so I credit him with the way I've been able to advance in this field. But, in this field of athletic administration, you have to want to do it on your own. You have to be ready to do some things on your own. So when I go to national and state conferences, I make an effort to network and to meet people, and to I would accept opportunities to be involved in other ways. I wanted to be on committees. And so that was, some of the personal things that I did to help get myself going. Jasper got me started, and I feel like I had enough initiative and thirst to want to be involved and do extra things on my own. And so it was people like Rich that helped me to fulfill some of those things.
Excellent. Now tell me this. I only know part of the story. I know about your son. I think his name is Keaton at Eastern Carolina,
Yes,
because I'm
my
aware of
youngest
him
son.
because the Roy Turner, whom you know is a
Yeah.
big ECU fan. But then I found out from Big Rich when I talked to him the other day. Apparently, you have another son at Tuskegee. Is that right?
I do. I
Well,
do. I
then
have three
talk about
kids.
both your sons.
I have three kids. All of my kids are athletes. My
Okay.
oldest daughter graduated from UCF. She was a heptathlete. She has a strong soccer background as well, but she competed with UCF as a heptathlete.
Hmm.
She graduated from there. My oldest son is a football player at Tuskegee. His name is Kobe, and he's a defensive back like his dad. So he's taking his dad's footsteps because his dad went to Tuskegee as well. And my youngest son, Keaton, which a lot of people may know because he has excelled in football with, just shattering records and
Hmm.
touchdowns and yards run and things like that. But yes, Keaton is at East Carolina, and he's doing great.
Well, that's awesome. So speaking about their father, I have a. I'm older now. I'm almost 68. But wasn't there a Mitchell that played for the Ravens? Have I got that right? Is that the
So
same person?
that's Anthony Mitchell is my ex-husband, my
Okay.
kid's dad. Yes, so he played with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Baltimore Ravens. He won the Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens, and he retired with Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay. That's awesome. All right. Now tell me, this is a little bit, I haven't asked this question to anyone on the podcast before, but once again, I got this
Uh-oh.
information from Big Rich. He tells me you were in a beauty pageant when you were younger. Is that correct? I want to hear about that.
When I was a little younger, because I was an adult, I've always loved pageantry. It was something that I watched with my mom when I was growing up. Oddly enough, I didn't think that, that was something that I would ever even do, because I was so involved with sports, and I was never really into getting all dolled up and wearing
Hmm.
dresses and things like that. So I kind of thought that that was out of my lane, but I did admire the women that did that. So I found pageantry as an adult, and I just wanted to do something that I loved so much from afar, just to see if I could do it. And it's weird because I went in blind. I did not get a pageant coach. I did research on my own. I ordered a packet called 101 Pageant Questions, and I watched videos. And you know what? The very first pageant, national pageant that I was eligible, because I was Mrs. Ohio and Mrs. Georgia. And as Mrs. Georgia, I was able to compete in the Mrs. US Continental pageant. That was my first national pageant. And I won that pageant. It's so crazy. And I remember at the end, you know, how they're calling the names and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
and Mrs. Georgia. And I stood there because I was like, am I dreaming? Did they really call me? And I won, and I couldn't believe it. I cried just like how the ladies cry on TV. That was me crying as they put the crown on my head and the sash around me. It was great. And afterwards, I saw one of the judges in the elevator, and he said, "You had no idea, did you?" I said, "No." He said, "You were our front runner from day one." He said, "We loved you because you were so authentic. You were raw. We could tell that you had not been coached, and we loved that about you." So,
Well, that's awesome. See, so talk to our listeners, because I'm only guessing because I've obviously never been in that beauty pageant world, but that's got to be dealing with the women there at these different pageants in Ohio and in Georgia has got to be so different than dealing with your teammates at Texas or even in women's professional football.
it's different in a sense. It's kind of like an individual sport. I had the same butterflies I did like before a race starts or before tip off or before kickoff. It's the same butterflies that you get. But you knew that, you know, you kind of support each other, but you know, you want to beat the next person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny because they didn't think, I feel like a lot of the other women didn't think I had a chance because it was my first pageant. And I had a couple of ladies, you know, that would give me tips on walking. But I think that they didn't mind helping me because they didn't think I had a chance.
Because they just figured we can help her because she's
Right.
yeah.
Right. But you know, it's the same feelings of competing that you get, but you're just doing something different. It is almost like a sport, you know, and so the sport of having your makeup right and picking out the right dress or the color, the perfect color bathing suit or fitness outfit, or
Mm-hmm.
making sure that your hair is perfect, you know, or being prepared to answer questions. Ladies that compete in pageants, they prepare just like, you know, a lot of the athletes. It's just their own different things that they do. And so it really was just like getting prepared for a race. But
Well,
I'm glad I did it.
I laugh when you tell me the story because it seems to me it would be like running a 400-meter race when you were younger
Yeah.
and you got some tips from
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
the people, but they figured, well, yeah, we can help her because she's in heat 7 and that's the slow heat, so we don't care. We'll
Absolutely.
we'll give her
That's it
we'll give her
exactly.
tips. Okay, well,
That's it
that's
exactly.
awesome. Well, let me ask you this, Candice. What's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
You know, it's very interesting because I may call it a failure, but in hindsight, you know, it's really just a lesson. I was kind of taking some notes on some things, and let's see. I look back on some things that, you know, I would have done differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think about in high school, uh, I raced a boy because he was like, you know, you can't beat me. I raced a boy in high school and I pulled my hamstring, and it prevented me from qualifying for state. One of my, I don't remember which year it was for me in high school. Um, I consider that a failure by, you know, listening to a boy to try to prove a point. Um, Sometimes I feel like not making the Olympics was a failure for me. But in actuality, you know, everything happens for a reason. So I don't have to, I can look back and say, you know what, that wasn't a failure. There was a reason why I didn't make it. You know, had I made the Olympics, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. You know, so I just look at them as life lessons, and how can I learn from different things that happen in my life, and how can I grow from different things that happen in my life. That's where it makes a difference. So maybe not failures, but, you know, just obstacles. But um, you live and you learn.
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't like we all do. Sure, no question about that. Well, now let me ask you this, because I didn't know this about you either. Big Rich, who actually coincidentally just called on my phone and I didn't answer because we're on this podcast.
Okay.
He tells me that you were on a coached football on an all male staff. Now,
I
tell
did.
me about that, because I've been on a few staffs in my day, and I can't imagine with all those macho guys around it. I'm guessing that some of them may have mistreated you or thought that you knew nothing about the sport. So talk to the audience about that.
You know what? From the outside looking in, or even before I got this opportunity, I may have thought that would be an experience of a woman coaching on an all male staff, coaching us a male sport, a male
Mm-hmm.
dominated sport on an all male staff. But it was a different situation for me. As a matter of fact, it was one of the best professional experiences I had when I was working in high school. And one of my colleagues was the head football coach. It was his first year in the building. It was my first year in the building. And we used to talk all the time. And we talked football, we talked X's and O's. And, so I'd go out, I'd make my way out on the field every now and then just to kind of watch and support, because I just love the game. And the next year he invited me out. He said, listen, you're always out there, you know the game, why don't you join my staff? And he said, you know, basically interviewed you all last year. You got the job if you want to be my linebackers coach. I was like, what? And so I accepted the offer and met the coaching staff, and and I let them know I don't know everything. I'm here to learn from you, do this thing with you. We're in this together. They were so receptive to me and accepting of me, very protective of me. The day that the coach introduced me to the boys, back then, I think lingerie football had just come out.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, Coach K is joining the staff. She's going to be new linebackers coach. Coach K actually plays football, And so the kids thought that I played lingerie football. So they're all whipping out their phones and they're trying to, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, I did not play lingerie. I do not play lingerie football. I suit up just like you with shoulder pads and, pads
Mm-hmm.
and helmet and all. And they were like, what? But I think that once I got out there and started working with the boys and they realized, oh my God, she does know the game. And where I thought that maybe some things I didn't know may stumble me a little bit, it wasn't that way. Kids in high school, a lot of them don't even know the basic fundamentals. So I was truly able to contribute a lot more than I thought that I would. But I was a part of a great staff, great team of kids. And that was the one thing that was really hard on me when I accepted the position that I have now, because I had to give up coaching. But I'm able to contribute in so many other ways. But I loved coaching football.
Well, let me ask you, how many years ago was this that you coached that team?
This was almost 7 years ago. This was almost 7 years ago when I coached.
The reason I asked about how you were treated was, of course, I'm retired now, but back maybe 20 years ago when I was still at Jordan High, we hired a female head baseball coach.
Okay.
She was on our interview committee. We interviewed all the candidates, and I turned the principal and I said, we don't want any of these people. I said, why don't we ask Mary Kay if she'll take the job? And she said, really? And I said, yeah. She knows she's the best hitting coach around. So we gave her the job. And the funny thing is, so there's newspaper articles about how progressive and forward thinking I was about, we hired a woman, but that wasn't what it was about. It was about, this was the best person for the job.
Yeah.
But then I know when she played some opposing coaches, they tried to run it up on her just to make a point. But she was such a good coach. She won pretty much 90% of her games. So you couldn't run it up on her. So right. I'm wondering if it was different for you in Atlanta, but even here out in Utah, there was a lot of people that said, what a great idea. This is great. You did that. And there were some people saying, oh no, it's baseball. Women can't be in baseball, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah. Well, somebody may have had a little chatter that I didn't know about, but, just me out there, there were it was very positive for the most part. There were times that we get to a field and they would assume that I was the athletic trainer or that I was the athletic director or maybe the principal or the team mom. And, sometimes before I could even get it out, there was a coach running in. No, this is our linebackers coach. If you need anything, whatever. So it was like that. And the guys, like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. So I had a lot of support.
Well, that's good to hear that. So let me shift gears to when you played, and let me talk first of all about, because I had no idea when I first met you back at the coordinators conference years ago.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you were the commissioner of the WNFC. And of course, the reason I asked that is because, as we have talked over the years, I was an assistant coach with the Utah Falcons, two-time national champions, and the Falcons obviously were part of the WNFC that broke off from one of the other women's leagues, because now there's 3 leagues. But talk about that and talk about your playing days, because we never played anybody from Atlanta. I know we played the Dallas team and all the teams out west.
Yeah.
But I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, so I started playing women's football in 2004. At the time, my husband we were in Jacksonville. He was playing with Jacksonville Jaguars. And David Garrod's wife, Mary, was telling me, we were very close because I think we were close because we loved sports. We were athletic. We weren't the pretty girls, the pretty NFL wives that you see on TV. I mean, we're both very cute, but we weren't into
you weren't the trophy wife, is what you're telling me.
Yeah,
you
like
could actually play.
We were okay going to the game with our hair in a ponytail or a baseball cap. That was me and Mary. And so Mary said, Kandice, they're having tryouts for the Jacksonville Dixie Blues. I'm going to try out. And I'm like, what is that? She says, women's professional football. I'm like, what? So I was excited. I wanted to try out as well. But it just so happened that my husband got traded. And so when he got traded, no, I think he was cut. He got cut. And so he moved on to the next city, and I decided to take the kids home, because it just would have been a lot of moving around, while he's adjusting to a new team. So we went home and I decided to see if Atlanta had a team. And sure enough, at the time, it was the Atlanta Explosion, and tryouts were going to be like in 2 weeks. So I started training and I tried out for the Atlanta Explosion in the fall of 2004, and the rest is history. So after the Explosion folded, I started playing with the Atlanta Phoenix, which is still in existence.
Sure, I'm familiar with them.
And so I've always played linebacker. I've only wanted to play linebacker, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. And so when I decided my last year of playing with the Phoenix was 2016, but I knew that I wanted to try out for Team USA in 2017. So I trained on my own by myself that whole year to prepare for tryouts for Team USA in 2017. And so that was my last time actually playing football, tackle football, until recently. I came out of retirement and now I'm playing for the Alabama Fire. One more round.
I like that. If I could, I'd talk you into moving to Utah, because we could certainly use you on the Falcons, although I'm not coaching them anymore.
Yeah, so I can play now because I'm not commissioner. We had this thing in when Dallas played Utah in Las Vegas, and
yes, I was there.
And so it was that meeting that we started talking about the new league, establishing something new. And Odessa Jenkins asked me not too long after that if I would take on the role of commissioner, because actually I was going to travel to play with her team. And so she said, well, I have a proposition. She said, but you may not be able to play with my team. And I was like, okay, well, what is that? And she said, I want you to be commissioner of the new league. She said, you can think about it and let me know what you think. And so maybe not even 24 hours, I said, I got you. I'll do it, And so I just remember working with Odessa and a few other ladies all across the nation now. We're doing this via cell phone, Zoom meetings, email. We built the WNFC. And but for me, I got to a point in my life to where I needed to focus on some things that I wanted to do. I needed to be true to myself and
Sure.
how I would do things. And I just felt like it was my time to move on. And so I resigned as a commissioner of the WNFC. And I've been able to still contribute to women's football because I'm not so tied to one league. And,
Right.
I was doing that anyway, serving on the board of directors for USA Football. But, relieving myself from the WNFC, I think that it made it better for me to be able to spread my wings. And so I'm comfortable with my decision and I'm enjoying the way I'm able to still contribute to women's
Well,
football.
you'll appreciate this. So the Falcons are playing. As a matter of fact, it was the last game I coached with the Falcons. I coached with them 4 years. We were in the championship game 4 years in a row. Lost the first year, lost the last year to Dallas.
Right.
I leave straight from that game when they scored late in the fourth quarter, and go to the airport in Las Vegas to catch a red eye to go to the NEDC in New York. And then I think I met you in September at the con, and I didn't put two and two together to realize it was the same. But I know a real good friend of mine is still the head coach of the Falcons, and he loves the WNFC just because the politics of those two other leagues are not in there, and
they're doing some great things, and I do believe they are setting a different standard. And I know the hard work that goes on behind the scenes to get this thing going and to keep it going. So I'm proud of them. I'm a part of the league in a different capacity, just as a player, and it's refreshing. It's not as stressful.
All right, well then let's shift gears, because obviously you and I could talk forever about women's football, but let's talk about your journey with the GADA.
Okay.
I already asked you if you knew Lucy. You said when you first got involved, but obviously you're heavily involved in the Georgia Association, and I know in the NIAAA. My goodness, I think you're at least on 3 or 4 different national faculties for the LTC. So speak to our audience about how you got involved and what a great blessing it is to put yourself out there and get involved.
Yeah, it's such a blessing, and it started on the state level, working with the GADA and serving on that board. Like I said, just helping out at the state conferences, and until I was able to serve in a bigger capacity. It's just been amazing, and it's allowed me an opportunity to, when I go to these national conferences, to be able to contribute what I've learned in my experiences working on the state level. I can contribute on the national level. I'm excited about chairing a new course. I'm going to be teaching this summer, the pilot course that I work with Rich. So
yeah, and he tells me that because he's going to keep that other one, so the parenting course you're going to take over. So
yes,
that's exciting.
The parenting course is very exciting. And so, it's just things like that, being able to connect and network, and I want to be involved. And so, just letting people know that I'm willing to be involved and help where I can help. People remember that. And so when they call on me and ask me to be a part of things, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to, I'm not shying away from it, if I have the time and I'm able to do that, because I love working with people who embrace this job and love this job the way that we do. It takes a special person to do what we do. A lot of people don't understand it, but we understand it. And so to be able to contribute, whether it's on a board or on a committee or on the faculty, I'm open to that. And I've just truly been enjoying the journey. And Lucia, to mention Lucia, yeah, we worked together. Lucia was around when I first joined the GADA, and she is a ball of fun. And yes, and so I just, would love when I would interact with Lucia and work with Lucia. And we named our state award in her honor. And I was the first one to receive that award after we named it after Lucia. So in 2019, I was Athletic Director of the Year for the state of Georgia, and that award is named after Lucia.
Well, that's awesome. I first met Lucia way back in 2002, or the very first NEDC meeting. There was only 11 of us there, and Lucia, I think, was
I
one
remember
of them.
hearing the stories.
And I remember, you'll find this interesting. Years ago, Jordan High, where I worked, went down and played Valdosta for 2 years in a row.
Okay.
And they were very, very nice to us. And they won the first year down there in Valdosta. But I remember football.
Okay, yeah. Valdosta's a powerhouse.
And but apparently now it's gone to Lowndes, which is a few miles away, but right in the same community. But we go down there, and so then we caught the flight from Atlanta, and I was telling my football coach, why didn't we fly to Jacksonville and drive up? It's a little bit shorter. We drive down there, we drive back, and it's Saturday night. We're flying home Sunday, and I called Lucia, and of course she met me just down from the hotel where we were. But yeah, I go back with Lucia a long way. Great person to have, and I know a great
sweetheart
to have in Georgia.
She's a sweetheart, and she loves athletics and athletic administration.
Yes. Tell me this, Kandice, if you had 2 suggestions for an athletic director that's brand new, and by brand new, I mean between 1 and 4 years, what 2 suggestions would you give them that would be absolutely necessary for them to become a success as an athletic administrator?
You know, if I could tell a new athletic director 2 things. One, get a mentor. I would advise them to get a mentor, and not just one. I would get a mentor on the local level, you know, your school district, someone close around you, someone on the state level, and someone on the national level. I would encourage a new AD to get involved. Go to your state conference, go to your national conference. This way you're creating a foundation to be able to grow and advance in the field. But you've got to make those connections, and having a good, strong mentor is a way to start. Every state has a coordinator, a mentor coordinator. So I would connect with that person, find out who that is, to help a new AD get involved and learn the field. Get your certification, take some courses and get you a certification.
And those are great things, because so many times those new athletic administrators, they're brand new, so they take the 504, which is a great course, after they take those first 3. And of course, you're in with League Green, and you got the 14 legal duties, and they're scared to death, and half of them want to quit 10 minutes after the course is over, because it's such a scary thing. I think you're exactly right. It's not for everybody, and I think that's great advice. Let me finish with this question then, Kandice, and thank you again for being on the show. What question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I think we've covered a lot, and we probably could have touched on, you know, how athletic administration is changing with times.
Then speak to that. Let's talk about that for.
Yeah,
we've got a few minutes left.
Our jobs looked a little different the past year, you know, and that may have been different from state to state, depending on what your state was facing. And so athletic directors have to be able to think outside the box, you know, and be creative and be fluid in what we do, and make decisions that are in the best interest of children and health and safety. And our jobs look different this year. It didn't come in a course that we took at a national conference. And because of the pandemic, we have been able to connect with our colleagues across the nation and across the globe in ways that we haven't been able to do before. You know, these Zoom meetings and these conferences and workshops, we've been able to learn from each other and see, you know, what's working in another state. What can we bring to our state? And I think that we have to learn from what we've gone through as a nation and as a world, and to progress our field. Let's take advantage of what we've gone through over this past year and know that collectively we can do anything. And I've seen that over this past year, and I'm just so excited about the ways that I've been able to work with my colleagues across the nation, and the things that we're doing in athletic administration for these students that we work so hard for.
Once again, our guest today has been Kandice Mitchell, CMAA Associate Director of Athletics for the Atlanta Public Schools. For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next Friday for another edition of the UIAAA Connection. Thank you, Kandice, for being on the show.
Absolutely. Tell Rich I said hello. Thank you for this opportunity and this platform to share.
Thank you.